Man.
Steve, how are you, mate?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good, buddy. Good. The day's wrapping down. It's been a nice sunny day here in London, so absolutely enjoying it.
So you might notice I have my football on a stick in front of my face here.
What, your new microphone?
My new microphone, yes.
You've caught up with the cool kids and got a proper broadcast quality microphone, I see.
I really didn't want to. I was perfectly happy just with the headset that I was wearing, but too many people said I sounded like crap. So I thought, all right, well, can't sound like crap, not if Mark's going to sound so good.
That's rude of them. You sound like crap.
People can be rude. I guess I think I'm rude, so. Let's see who we got online. I noticed we got several people here.
Who we got?
Listening in. Everybody hop in on the chat and just tell us who you are, because I can't always remember what your screen is.
Yeah, say hello on chat. Drop your LinkedIn profiles in if you wish, and say howdy.
Yeah, so we got some interesting topics to talk about today.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to learn to actually talk into the microphone. So if I find myself over here somewhere, just let me know.
Jason loves your sexy tones, mate. He loves your sexy tones.
Oh, man, I love that.
Hey, Ian, how are you?
I wanted to say that. Ian, there we go.
Do you know Ian?
Oh, man, I do know Ian. Yes, Ian from Canada.
Wow, there you go.
Yes, we were on PAC together for a while.
Oh, very good.
He has a partner practice up there and also has a portal connector. So his company is the one that produces the portal connector for CRM to Sitefinity. So one of those portal. I'd definitely be curious to hear from Ian. Ian, you and I need to talk. I just want to get update on what the status of the portal stuff is. So perfect. See, I'm even setting up phone calls here with people.
Wow, very good. Very good.
So very cool.
So
you're back home, I see, and I'm
yeah.
I'm still home. We got Ignite, or no, not Ignite. We got UG coming up at Extreme.
Yeah, next month, man. It's only weeks away, isn't it?
Only weeks away, yeah. And you and I are going to be doing our live broadcasting again from there, which will be fun. So
in Orlando, what are we? 2 weeks away or 3 weeks away? I think it's 3 weeks.
I think you and I are arriving on the 11th.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's mainly that following week after that. So
yeah. No, it'll be good. Looking forward to that. It should be cracker. Tell me.
Is that a beer you're drinking?
Huh?
Is that a beer you're drinking?
No, I don't drink. I just pure water, mate.
Yeah,
pure water.
Yeah.
It's not. We're not far enough into warring a beer yet. Haven't earned it. I happened to listen on the weekend or Monday. It might have been to the podcast you did with Charles Lamanna.
Oh yeah.
Mate, that was an interesting podcast.
You know, it's timely because everybody was asking about, the whole licensing and API conversation didn't seem to be dying down or going away. And I knew it was FUD. And, we've got here, a couple of weeks from now, we're launching the new version. So I thought it'd be a good time to get him on and try and talk about, clearing the air a little bit on a few things, talk about some of the new features. So I caught him before he went to dinner. But he's always a good chat. He's happy to kind of, tell you what you want to know. And there's a few things in there. I think we put some items on the run sheet to get into that kind of came out in that call that I thought we can unpack as
nice.
well.
Nice. Yep. So, well, why don't you pick the first one there on the run sheet, which is Steve stands corrected. I always love to hear when you're being corrected. So
yeah. Well,
why don't we hit with that first? And then what I'm going to do while you're doing that, I'm going to jump in because we had a lot of people fill out the form today with questions.
Oh, good.
So then I'll bring those up, but tell us how you stand corrected. I'm recording just so I can use this as evidence in the future.
It's an extension of my being corrected in our last call, but now with further confirmation really from my call with Charles, where I had been under the mistaken impression, may have been an assumption, that these platform license, a $10 license, and the new unlimited $40 Power Platform license were not for use with Dynamics 365, that they had their own licenses. And I think I have clearly stated up to now that those are two completely different things, not to be mixed. Well, that's not correct. You can actually mix those things.
Mm-hmm.
you could use the $10 license on a Dynamics 365 instance where you've got everybody else using whatever they're using out of that. You can certainly create an app in that does not utilize any of the restricted entities and does not utilize any of the advanced capabilities of the sales app. And you've got your $10 license. So circling back again to Mohammed Mustafa's approach, and again, putting some more weight behind his approach. So yes, I stand corrected on that one. It won't be the first time I say something wrong. It's just one of the first times I got caught.
I love that. One of the first times I got caught. So that's cool. That's cool. Good clarity. What I want to let me take the first question. So this one came in via LinkedIn, and it's an ISV. And what I'll do is I'll give you the background. So they're building a solution on the Power Platform that connects an accounting system in a specific geography. So the accounting system's designed for that market. It's in use a lot, and they're connecting it to Dynamics and via the Power Platform. And so what they've said here, and here's their question, that just give you some background. One of the things I'm struggling with is the following. For the second product, and the second product is a little events management tool designed for the local market. It allows you to run events built on the Power Platform. Mm-hmm. So for the second where am I? One of the things I'm struggling with is following. For the second product, I'd like to target companies already using the Microsoft products. For the first one, which is the accounting integration, I need to target companies for Microsoft products and the accounting software needed. Pretty nice, right? Question mark. Mm-hmm. Are there any tips you're able to share with me about how other ISVs are dealing with these kinds of markets? Thanks in advance. So what he's saying is that, how do I find the customers that are using the Microsoft product and the accounting product that's in their local market, which is in Europe? Yep. And then the other one is for targeting, other Microsoft implementations. How do I target them so that, I can find out if they have a need around this little event management tool?
Yeah, well, and I see the person who asked the question is on here also. Kevin says, that's my question.
Hey, Kevin. I wasn't going to use your name, Kevin, because I hadn't asked for your permission, but good on you for owning it.
Exposed himself.
So there you go. Kevin, just so I'll give the background now. He's there. He's Dutch. So this is, in the Netherlands is the context or the background or reference of this product. So before we jump in and give our own opinion on this, anybody in the chat session, if you have an opinion on how to target existing Microsoft customers, if you have an ISV solution, what are your suggestions? Type them into the chat. Let's share the knowledge. That would be awesome. And then Steve, over to you. What do you reckon? And I'll tell you what I reckon.
That's definitely a tough one. I mean, Microsoft obviously will not send you, here's an email list of all of our existing customers. They're not going to do that. They're not always out there with their hand held up to find. Probably have the same challenge with the other solution coming from the finance side. So it's about getting discovered. And I think that AppSource, and I know I'm a broken record on AppSource because it really has not performed yet for anyone, but it has to soon, because now they're charging us for it. And there's a huge motion behind AppSource that I don't think is manifests on AppSource yet, but will. And you got to be on AppSource. That's going to be a source of discovery. Yep. I appreciate that it has not been yet, but it's going to be. It needs to be for Microsoft to succeed. So you got to get on AppSource. Beyond that, trying to find those people's tough. I mean, you need to start blogging about that sort of stuff so you can get surfaced in results when people are looking. Yeah, there's some tools out there that I've seen before that would identify technology being used by someone. Of course, I think it's got to be like SaaS technology that they're able to even spot. For example, with one of these tools, you can go and find all the users of ClickDimensions, because ClickDimensions uses, their name and some URLs. So you're able to pull back, here's a list of all the ClickDimensions companies. But then what do you do with it? You're just going to go start spamming the hell out of them? Yeah, that's. I mean, I look at my LinkedIn every day, and the only messages I seem to get on LinkedIn is somebody saying something like, "Thanks for accepting my friend request. Here's what I do." And, you know, I don't even read it. I just delete, 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 delete it. So it's so hard to crack through to people. I mean, they all look the same. I'm sure maybe one of those is an awesome, awesome solution, but his pitch is the exact same as all the other crap. So,
but this is the thing. You don't talk product without building relationship, right? The whole fundamentals of sales has not changed, you know, in the way I see it. Now, what you were talking about there is basically spider technology, where you go out and you spider every, you know the URL structure for CRM. It's crm5.dynamics.com, or it's crm.dynamics.com, but depending on the geo that you're targeting, that's the URL structure. There's software out there that you can go and find me that URL string. And by the way, give me the bit that I don't know in front of it. And if you can work out the name of that company from that bit in front of it, there's a possibility. I've known companies that have used it.
I mean, maybe you do research on LinkedIn and try and make a connection, but don't try and sell them something. Definitely don't send them an email blasting your crap.
No. So, you know, I know companies that have used that tech successfully and to discover customers. But at the end of the day, you know, I think, Nathan Hawkins there, he says, get out at community events and meet people. And have something to talk about when you meet them. That's not a sales pitch, you know?
I'll tell you, we've got Ian Pavlik in here saying he's busting at the seams, and Ian has an ISV product. He goes to lots of trade shows. He's out there. He's visible. They blog. You know, I mean, I'd take a page from Ian's book. Go check out pavliks.com and look for his portal connector. You know, he did some interesting things with like these little figurines, called them like Portal Man or something like that, giving them away at events, and it was a funny little thing, but you know, it was there you say it costs a lot of money, it takes time, but it works. Be prepared to spend some money. There's no free path to a bunch of customers banging down your door.
And I wouldn't say it's just money; it's more time, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Megan, how are you? It's more time, not just money, because at the end of the day, you know, if you need to get your first 10 customers on, or your first 20, you need to set that goal and then break that goal down. And okay, how many frogs do I need to kiss to hit the 10, the 20, whatever it is? And if you game it with yourself, you'll get there much quicker than being random about it. So, you know, it might be that you identify the companies in your market, and I don't know if you're just targeting the market that you're in, but identify that you're going to engage or have a coffee with X number of them a week or a month, and talk about their businesses and their needs, and it'll be a natural byproduct of that you'll talk about yours, but don't just be sales pitchy.
You know, it looks like Megan just joined, so we should stop talking about her now.
Yeah. Got to keep it all politically correct. Megan's meant to be coming on the show to give us a rundown of on
our show or on your show?
No, on our show. As on this show. This show. Remember, we're going to have her on to talk about portals. Sorry, not portals. We're going to have her on to talk about Forms Pro.
Forms Pro. Yeah, I was actually playing around with that a little bit yesterday for really probably the first time I've had a chance to actually look at it. I didn't get very deep, but I don't really have a particular need at the moment.
Whoopsie.
Okay, that doesn't sound like water.
Sorry, it's that time of the day here.
That time of the day, exactly. So what else we got on our sheet?
Oh, okay. So so that was
one sip of beer and you're all flapped up already.
I've forgotten what I'm doing. Okay, here's the next one. This come from Mary Thompson. Mary M. Thompson.
If you're on, Mary, say hi.
Hi, Mary. I'm not sure if you're on the cast, but hello if you are. Give us a wave if you are. And here's a question. I like it very much. And she says, I am working on teaching underprivileged students and struggling adults how to use the Power Platform to build apps and essentially teach themselves new employable skill sets, which I think is fantastic. You know, I just wrote a post a week or so ago around career changes and the opportunity that the Power Platform allows people to
what Britt is doing out there, right?
Become technologists. Yeah. So talk to me about that a sec. I'll just finish the question. After they know how to build apps, my idea is to help them find some freelance work, etc. My question is, how can I make sure that these people are employable to companies? What makes a freelancer, a freelance power app builder employable on the most basic level? So shall I take this one first, Steve-O, and then you jump in?
Yeah, I've got one pragmatic idea, but let's hear the real ideas from you first.
Okay, so first of all, I would remove the word freelancer. If someone is career changing, they can't become a freelancer yet because they don't necessarily have the skills to be freelance. And one of the skills I'm talking about is picking up new work yourself, which is something that I see a lot of people that have been long-term consultants, they go freelance and then they come back to being consultants again because it's a different business actually finding the next, your next dinner, so to speak.
There's a direct correlation between freelance and homeless.
and so this is what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is that perhaps the view one might take is look for part-time jobs. In other words, it might be just 30 hours or 20 hours or 10 or 15 hours a week that you can supplement on projects, as in find customers that will take these on. I think you need to find a few partners maybe that have an appetite for this. And some partners are enlightened and the rest aren't. So it's a case of finding those partners that go, you know what, I am going to invest in the future, and consider that. Outside of, and I think Nick Dolman, Ready XRM there just in the chat said, you need freelancer. Communication is key, writing skills. There's so many more skills you need to freelance as been suggested, but around the Power Apps journey, I think that at a minimum, if a partner's going to even look at a consideration for them, I say until you've got experience, you need to get exams, right? You've got to get exams. You've got to get a qualification.
Pragmatic one.
Yeah, and then you, because it shows that you've studied a body of work and to a level that you got certified on. And I think that's just a basic point. You need to get those, those 3 or 4 key certifications now around the Power Platform.
From a purely pragmatic standpoint, they've raised the number of certified individuals that are required to have a silver or gold competency.
Right.
Raised it significantly. Walking in,
you're talking about Microsoft have raised the requirement on partners for certified individuals, correct?
Exactly. So coming in the door, comparing 2 people that just came out of some training and both have equal skills, if one of them has a certification that I can utilize as part of my competency requirements, they're going to get the nod. So not only does it let me know that they know about the product by proof of certification, but that certification has some value to me as a partner. And I don't think anybody should be hanging up a shingle going freelance until they've worked in the industry for a partner and learn what the heck they're doing. I mean, you can get trained on Power App and that's great, but you need to go work for somebody before you go hang up a shingle, trying to get work as any kind of a freelancer expert.
Yeah, it's just because those businesses will cover your butt, right? Like you learn stuff, you learn how to do it correct, within the business. Now,
otherwise you just get taken advantage of. People are just going to lowball you because they know you don't have the skills and just work you like a grunt, out of your apartment, for nothing. So that's not a career. That's not any better than what they probably were going to do anyways.
So look at this. The can's got a thing telling I should drink it cold.
Oh, that's handy.
They got to do that in Britain because they're used to warm beer here. Do you know that? Anyhow,
I could not imagine a warm beer.
I've never had one. I tell you what, isn't just one other thing on here. Britta Rexted, she's an MVP in the US, and she actually runs a similar program, and it might be worth connecting with her. She helps returning to work women. So in other words, they might have young families, they might have raised families, their family situation has changed, now they need to earn the income. So they're not necessarily most of them can never become full-time employees. They can only ever do so many hours. And she's had some successes with her program. So it might be worth connecting with her on that.
She's working on trying to lift people out of like waitress jobs and secretary, those kind of
all
jobs.
Sorts,
It's got a path and a future, and it's definitely commendable what she's done there.
Excellent. So, Mary, I recommend getting in touch on that one.
Mary just arrived.
Oh no, but she was listening on another means, I think, earlier on. So, she was listening in a car. Awesome.
Hopefully, we answered her question.
Yeah.
At least as well as we could.
Okay, got another one here from Larry. I think Larry might be on here
today. Are we doing all questions today?
I'm just going to do another question. Then I'm gonna talk about the October 15th cutoff. So this question comes from Larry, and Larry, I would say your correct name if I could read, but I can't. But I do know that I'm pretty sure I saw your name earlier on the call.
Hi, if you're on.
This is his question, and there's been a couple of questions. You're not the only one that's asked around this theme. When transitioning from Dynamics administration within applications to the Power Platform admin area, when is the transition expected to be finished between admin, the Power Platform? At the moment, building solution creates a challenge having to change between two administration areas. I got another one from Todd Mercer this time up there in Canada, said the same thing. There's so many portal URLs now that one has to remember where to go. So what I'll say is yesterday I was on a call with James Olnick, and he's the guy that owns this within Microsoft, within the product team. And he's coming on I'm doing a podcast with him shortly, and we're addressing on that podcast all these things. And he gave me some very positive indication about what's happening, but I'll leave it to that show. But they are taking it very seriously, the administrative experience of the environments, and going forward. One of the sayings that James Phillips has is 5 by 5 by 5. You've heard that before, Steve?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
What does it mean?
5 minutes to deploy, 5 minutes to wow. It's 5 by 5.
Yeah. So
there's not a third 5 in there.
5. Okay.
5 by 5.
My bad. But they are seriously taking these out. Like, we saw the disconnect with the URLs because they had to pull the platforms apart to be able to stitch them back together. That's what we've been, for us that have been long-term in the game, that's the pain we're struggling with. But it is all to a good end, and the pain will soon go away, and, we'll soon forget that it ever happened.
Yeah, we're definitely not at the end state. I mean, this is still the transition. I think that, there's some big things happening. I mean, there was a lot of stuff and Charles mentioned it on the cast about they still got a backlog of things from that legacy application that were pretty deeply rooted, that they got to disconnect and pull over and get over into this. But they're definitely, the North Star is a one admin center to rule them all.
Yeah.
And they're making progress continuously, but I wouldn't expect, by October that we'll be there either. It's just, if you have to bounce back and forth a little, you have to bounce back and forth a little. And over time, you'll just be doing that less and less and less.
Yeah. Yeah. I have another question, but I'm not going to ask it just yet. I'll come back to it.
Okay.
One of the things on the agenda was the October 15th cutoff for ISVs. So want to be really clear. I was on the ISV call yesterday, and if you're not recertified by October the 15th, you don't really exist anymore delisted. After that.
Delisted.
Delisted. So October the 15th, that'll be the week we're in Orlando together. So it's only 3 weeks out. So if you've got an ISV solution and you've buried your head in the sand and thinking it doesn't affect me, think again. It's worth looking at understanding. This is a time that you kind of need to take a serious look at it, understand the implications and what it's going to mean for your business.
Well, I could tell them a couple, because depending on where your ISV solution is at, if your ISV solution is currently compatible with 9.0, that doesn't automatically mean you still need to go in and republish that solution to have it go back through certification. But if you're on 9.0 or greater, then you should be fine, unless you have some other issues from Solution Checker that you need to fix. But if your solution won't run on the latest versions of the application, well, then pushing that button is not going to do you any good. You're going to have to go back and re-architect that thing. I think there's a lot of those up there. And as I said earlier, AppSource hasn't really proven itself yet. So I think there's a lot of folks that are probably thinking, you know what, before I go re-architect that whole thing, let's wait and see what happens. And I don't blame them.
So restricted entities. We see that Dynamic Objects has just jumped on the call, freaked out that he's missed the discussion. But of course, we haven't discussed it yet. So what were we going to talk about? Restricted entities. So I heard a bit of a whisper on the call. You got anything, your podcast with Charles the other day, but I hear some restrictions may be coming.
Well, I was looking at that $10 app, and when they were saying that it could be used on on a Dynamics 365 instance, I think part of the reason I assumed that it couldn't was because that would just blow a hole in that whole thing. And I reached out to actually Ryan Cunningham by email to just say, what's the deal here?
Yeah.
He says, well, yeah, we're aware that for the sales app in particular, that might be a challenge. So we're going to be adding some new restricted entities to the list. And I took the opportunity with Charles to try and have him unpack that a little bit. And he said two things that were interesting. One, he said, I don't have the list handy. So a list would lead me to believe that there's certainly more than one.
Yeah. And if you take, Dynamics 365 sales, there's only 5 entities in there that could be restricted just about, right? Lead, opportunity, maybe the invoice, order, quote, product catalog. Who cares about that? So I
can't do anything with account and contact because those are, are core.
Yeah.
But he did mention specifically opportunity, but he kind of said, like, for example, opportunity is the kind of thing that it feels like you should have to pay, the license for.
How simple is an opportunity entity? Give me 2 hours and I could build it from scratch.
And he also talked about making use of some of their advanced capabilities, which are not necessarily restricted entity, but like, for example, resource scheduler.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to use that in your $10 app. But you know what, frankly,
it makes sense.
I mean, I knew there had to be more to that story because otherwise they were just going to gut that thing. So they're going to come back with some more restricted entities. And he said, this is part of the $10 SKU motion is to drop that SKU. We have to add those. So those are happening at the same time. Would be kind of nice to have a list so that we know what we're building around sooner rather than later. But as you said, and Nick there can build an opportunity entity in an hour. I would not disagree that you could build an entity, call it opportunity, throw some fields on it in a process and say, there, I built an opportunity entity in an hour. However, depending on how customers are using these products, if they're using, for example, product catalog to build quotes in an opportunity, you're not building that in an hour. So it really has entirely to do with what customers are doing with that sales application, how many of the features that they're using. One of the other things that Charles had said in that same vein was that they feel very confident about the value of their first-party applications, and that they still feel like a significant number of customers are going to opt for those first-party applications.
Okay.
I don't agree. I think every customer is going to be trying to figure out how to get on a $10 SKU and decide, you know what, I can live without this, I can live without that. But there's party line, so I got that.
Yeah. I mean, that is understandable. It's just the key thing for me: restrict any entities you want, but make the schema available. Right? Make the common data model for these Dynamics apps available, so that there is, you gave the scenario to him. What's the point if I build an app and that customer then goes, you know what? I want to take one of these first-party apps, and why can't I just use that entity? In fact, we're on that call with James the other day, said something similar. That seems logical to be able to step up to a first-party app from a ISV solution if the ISV has been enabled or empowered to have access to the database schema. Now, if you...
I agree. I think it has go ahead.
A common data model is open source according to the documentation. But at the moment, the technology has been prevented or whatever it might be, that we haven't got the common data models for the first-party apps. We need those, and it would make a much more smooth transition for ISVs to build their solutions, knowing that they're not creating opportunity XYZ because they can't use the opportunity entity.
Then you get into a little bit of confusion about restricted, right? If they make opportunity entity restricted, and they release the schema with opportunity entity in it, then there have to be something that says you can use our opportunity entity with a Power App if you don't have Dynamics 365 without a restriction.
Yep.
Later on, when you upgrade, or if you upgrade, you're going to have to upgrade that license now, because now it is a restricted entity.
So you've chucked Dynamics into the mix, right? Yeah, sorry, you've used a Dynamics, which Dynamics comes with a lot of other business logic, all that kind of stuff. All we're asking for is the table, the database table, right? At the end of the day, that you have a field that's named qualify, and it means the same thing no matter who builds an app, right? The whole idea.
What you want is, you don't want to have to migrate. You want to be able to just have that customer say, I want to upgrade to, enterprise sales from Rapid Start or whatever they're using. Yeah. And I don't want that to be a migration. I just want to buy another license and start using the enterprise sales app. And all of my data that I did up to now is sitting right where it's supposed to be. Yeah. And without that schema, that's not possible right now. All that data is going to be sitting in some custom entity you created, and you're looking at a migration project to move that stuff.
Yeah.
Even if we get to the point where Charles had talked about being able to move from Bear CDM or Bear CDS to Dynamics 365 CDS without requiring a migration, that doesn't solve this issue, because it's still going to be a custom thing you built moving to first party. But the last thing I'll say on that, we got a lot of customers that are using our apps and I don't have any of them. I haven't had a single one ask
upgrade
moving to the first party. But
your app is so good, man. Your app is so good. Nobody wants to upgrade.
Well, what happens is it's an accelerator, right? So they get started. You work with them to make it fit their business, and at that point, it's doing what they want it to do. They don't see a need to do any more. Now, some of that is just their lack of understanding of maybe some things that are available over there. But as far as their normal business process, it's solved. I can't come up with a good conversation to go in there and say, hey, for 9 times more money, you could have this feature or that feature. That would make any sense. So we're not getting asked. So that motion doesn't exist like I had thought that it might.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we know the motion we're going to see coming up is going to be the opposite. It's going to be people trying to figure out
how to downgrade.
Hey, you know what? We're not using that much of the sales app. We're just doing some basic opportunity tracking and just
let's build our own.
And that's going to be the big motion.
Yeah. Do you want to take a look at Brian's comments in there? Just read through that, and I'll let you, because you've been discussing this licensing stuff just recently.
I gotta scroll.
And while you're doing that, I want to talk about API reporting and admin portal. So I don't know if anyone can confirm this. I have not gone and validated it, but I was told yesterday by an individual that this week API reporting had appeared in the admin portal, that you could see how many API calls you were making. And I just wondered if anyone is in the chat can confirm that that is now in their tenant, and that they can see that they can monitor the total number of API calls that their org or their tenant is pulling. So I've not validated it, but I got told in I was in a conference call last night from somebody in Seattle. It wasn't an NDA, it wasn't a Microsoft employee, but it appeared this week that the ability to monitor, just like you can your storage, you can now monitor your API calls, which that must have.
They had to have heard that to market, right?
Hey,
they had to have heard that to market.
Yeah, the fact that the person is based in Seattle, I can only assume it's on a US based tenant that it's been rolled to, so it might not be in all geos yet. But yeah,
US is usually the last. We're one of the last markets to get changes. Japan is, I think, the canary market. So if you really want to see stuff, early, go spin up an instance and put Japan as the geo, and it always has the latest and greatest. But US, because US is so big, it's kind of one of the last markets to get it.
Look at the chat there. Nick used 841 API calls this morning so far.
So,
it's on Insight.
Charles had said, and anybody who didn't listen to that, had said that they really expected that to come off like an asterisk on your cell phone bill. They didn't expect this big blow up. They absolutely don't want API calls to have to even come into the conversation. They just want you to be able to buy licenses, keep it easy. They don't want to have to architect and do a bunch of crazy stuff. And he said, for 95% of the use cases out there, and they've got the telemetry, they know.
Yeah.
I don't care what everybody's saying out here. They actually have the telemetry that says, you know what, this is only going to affect a fraction of our users.
Yeah.
Unless it just so happens that every person I'm talking to is in that fraction, which I don't believe. I think there's just too much hysteria around the API calls.
Yeah.
They can always raise them if they need to, if they see something. But this was, I mean, if you listen, he clearly was disappointed at the reaction. They thought this was a non-issue. They set the thing at a point where it would be a non-issue. And I'm getting tired of hearing about it. So Nick, shut the hell up.
What did Nick say?
I don't know. It's API call horse shit.
No, what I'm saying is that they can now see all their API calls. It is valid. A whole bunch of people on the call have gone and jumped into their tenant.
Oh, I see what he's talking about.
They've actually looked it up. It's there.
Frank's
not
heard it
enough
from
according to Nathan, though.
Frank's heard it from zero reliable sources that API licensing is response to my post. I think API licensing is all about protecting its runaway trains. Charles had said, that it's one of the challenges with the SaaS business model is everybody's paying a license fee for SaaS. And some users just, end up using the hell out of it, and others aren't using as much. And those ones that are using the hell out of it are driving not only your costs, but they're getting more value. So the safe thing to do is to put a cap on it. And just like he mentioned, like with your cell phone or something, you may have a cap on there. You don't hit it, you don't notice it, unless you were doing something insane. Would you ever hit that cap? Otherwise, you don't notice it. And that's kind of how they looked at these limits was, let's just stick a cap up here to protect ourselves from the runaway trains.
Yeah. How close do you live to Gus Gonzalez?
Me? Gus is in Atlanta. So
I know Gus has it in for Ready XRM, and now it looks like you do as well. You've kind of joined the old Nick Dolman bashing, like, tone it down, mate, tone it down.
No, not bashing at all. But besides, I think Nick could probably take Gus pretty easily. In fact, if you're in the same room, he could probably lift me by my ankles and use me to beat Gus over the head with. So my bets would be on Nick.
True enough. So when you meant by an asterisk there, because I never understood your metaphor, you're just saying that it's very unlikely that the biggest majority of customers that the API calls will ever have any effect. Hey, Todd, I see Todd's joined us. Did you see I got your question in there, Todd, about your URLs? And if you've joined late, you might have missed it, but I talked about your question on all your URLs.
And I'm talking about that dashboard. To be honest, I think that was hastily put together. They clearly expected this to be a footnote. Everybody blew up about it. Yeah. And I think the dashboard has been hastily put together, but I think their goal is to kind of prove to everybody that, look, seeing an issue. Move along. Next issue.
Yeah. The thing is, though, if you look at what Nick had said, he just opened his personal profile, and that took 800 calls.
Is that what he said?
No.
I wasn't clear on what he said.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, just pulling your leg.
What else we got on our list?
Okay, so other things on the list. So I had here the rise of the Power Platform. And what I'm talking about is that, we've been on a couple of internal calls and stuff this past week. We've seen Charles Lamanna's role change. Mm-hmm. It is becoming absolutely crystal clear that the platform is the forward direction. Like, I had a pre-call with what's his name? Hayden Stafford.
Yep.
The other day. Yep. And it is pretty clear. The word on the street is everything Power Platform, like very, very, very clearly. And it's not that they're not
application platform, actually. Citizen application platform.
Are you back on CAP again?
CAP. That's what they call it internally, the Citizen Application Platform.
Yeah, I don't think it's an in-market term though, right? The Power Platform's the in-market term.
It's the branding, yes, but internally that's what they call it. And what they call it internally is kind of telling,
Totally. And I mean, it's a pretty big deal, him becoming CVP, but I just feel that if people aren't like 100% clear on where the Power Platform is going, and it's not saying the Dynamics products are moving away, it's just very clear their future direction with the technology. I was writing some footnotes today, and I looked at something that Satya said at the keynote, or whichever footnote, or whatever they call them at
core notes now, right?
The sessions at Inspire. And he said 500 million apps to be developed, 500 million in the next 5 years. That's what their data is telling them.
Yeah. The only way that happens is that they engage the quote unquote citizens.
They have to have a massive pool of people, right?
When you look at their history prior to the citizen approach, Microsoft, they don't make any money on the SI services, right? That was all us, right? They only ever make money on the licenses. And one of the things that was no doubt between them and a license sale to a customer was an SI's, fees to get that stuff going.
Yeah.
So if they are able to kind of push the SI motion a little bit to the left and give citizens something they can do without SIs, I mean, yeah, this is all about selling licenses and removing any impediments to selling licenses. Charles had said, he did say, it's a citizen development platform where anyone, including developers, kind of almost as a side note, almost like kind of tossing a bone to the development community, but their target is not the development community to build on this stuff. Their target is everybody else on the planet to build on this thing, which would dwarf the developers. Yeah, they're playing a long game, and I don't think they're going to wait very long to play it.
Yeah, true. I had a question here from Faraz, and forgive me if I don't get this 100% correct, but I think we've got it worked out. Microsoft has announced the renaming of Project on the Power Platform last week. The preview, and in brackets he's put as under NDA, is suggesting that Microsoft Project Professional, that has been a favorite among schedulers for decades, is not integrated like it was with Dynamics PSA. And he's just asking, does anybody know about this? Are they aware of it?
So this popped up a while back. Where did this? I think when we were at Summit.
But the thing is when PSA first came out, I think it was released 1 or 2. I can't remember from memory. It was about 4 years ago. That the integration to Microsoft Project Professional came in version 2 or 3. It definitely wasn't in V1.
No. Well, they essentially have replaced the entire work breakdown structure engine in PSA with Project Online. That was the big controversy back at Summit was, oh my God, PSA is going away. Well, it wasn't going away. They just took a weak link of it and took the world's leading WBS system and said, why aren't we using that in PSA? And they did that. And Charles, again, had said one of the motions around CDS is they have a lot of customers starting with Project Online on CDS. In that kind of move from there to maybe first party or where they might go. So apparently that's been a huge motion, is people using Project Online with CDS. So I don't know about people of using, the historical versions of Project Professional, or it's not something that I deal with on a daily basis, but clearly I'd say anybody using anything old, you probably need to be thinking about using the new stuff.
Yeah. Frank, I don't know what you're running on that server. I got your picture come through on LinkedIn Messenger there. 25,310 API calls from the 17th of the 9th to the 18th of the 9th, 11 a.m. to 11 a.m. So 24-hour period. 2 users were active, 25,310 calls. That's definitely up there above. If it was a Dynamics instance, theoretically you can go to 50,000 with 2 active users, right? I think 40,000 because you got two lots of 20. But interesting. I don't know what you got running in there.
I think one of the things that we're going to see is again, I'm still thinking this thing's a non-issue, but if it becomes more of an issue, I think there's going to be an onus on ISVs to architect their solutions in such a way that they don't generate onerous API calls, thinking about better ways. I could even see it in the future as a competitive advantage between two ISV solutions that are doing something similar.
Yeah.
That becomes another factor
Yeah.
in their sales sheet. We generate, this many average API calls versus this one.
Yeah.
I think it's going to put an onus on SIs that are doing custom development to really have to think about a factor we never thought about before. We never cared about API calls. Wasn't even part of our thought process.
Yeah. I mean,
Charles is saying it still shouldn't be, but if it ultimately becomes something, then that's going to be a new thing to be measured on.
But I think that like he made a very clear statement on that call, which is that they don't want APIs to even be in your brain thinking.
Yeah,
to address
want it to be a factor.
The anomalies, right? It's to address the anomalies, which is fair enough. I wouldn't want, to say I'm giving everybody free petrol. Well, as you say, the data rates on your connection, right? There's that asterisk on your bill that says it's unlimited. But if you take 5 terabyte, we're gonna throttle you down, right?
It's unlimited to 5 terabytes.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. You know. And so they've
like
got
the
to
fat
put
people
these
going
kind
into
of
buffet.
Yeah, but I can't imagine they're going to go $10 SKU here because we're going to screw you on the back end with API calls, right? People suss it out. We're in a global market that talks nowadays. People be out of there like lightning, right? So I do think you're on call that this wasn't meant to go like it did for them. But once again, I think even admitted their messaging needs to be a bit tighter. And how
they got caught off guard. But as you pointed out before, they seem to get caught off guard all the time.
Yeah.
So they should look at your idea of that red team, blue team almost for anything, because the stuff they're thinking is going to be an asterisk still blowing up.
I honestly, I think they need a bit of coaching. They need somebody to come in
and actually hire. Who could they?
No, not me. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about they need somebody to come in and that is, like a PR person and just say, you know what, you just need to tighten up here, here, and here and put a framework in because, a lot of these people, of course, are not trained necessarily in PR. They're technologists, right? They think everything's quite black and white and we'll all get it.
He did say that their goal is massive global scale and they're not going to get there with extra charges for API calls confusing or crazy storage charges or expensive licenses or that's not going to get to their goal. They really want to see that here's a price for a license. It's a very reasonable price, reasonable enough that anybody should be able to use it. There's no secrets or hidden charge or anything because that kills scale.
Yeah,
and they want global rapid scale of that $10. That's going to be the sweetheart SKU that they're really going to, because they're never going to get global rapid scale with enterprise first party prices. But at $10, they can blow that. They can blow the shit off.
You know what? $10 smells to me like Office 365 type SKU pricing, right? And look what happened to that. World domination achieved.
Yep, exactly. Right? I mean, it's interesting because in a way, knowing that gets you a CDS environment, that gets you all the XRM capabilities, that gets you a model-driven app, a portal, a Canvas app. It almost feels like that's too much for $10.
Yeah,
I almost feel like in the future I'm going to be having to explain to people that are comparing this to other systems that cost more why that $10 actually is more than the other system that's charging 3 times or 4 times as much. It's almost too much for the price. I'm not complaining though, but it's too much for a price. And one of the things that I was talking to George Dubinsky last night for a few minutes, and he brought up one point that I didn't bring up in that call because I was kind of letting Charles take the lead there. They got this $10 SKU, and that's for a single app, as I just described.
Yep.
If your users have a need for more than one app, you can obviously, if they're going to use 2, you can obviously pay $20. If they're going to use 3 apps, you can pay $30. Okay. Or if they're going to use 4 or more, then you might as well go with the full unlimited.
Correct. Well, you can eat.
Well, that sounds good, but when he talked about trying to
What happened to Steve? Steve just like, boom. I don't know what he was on about, but he's just.
The first thought is.
Oh, sorry, you're back, mate. We just lost you. Hang on, we lost you on the feed. Can you repeat what you're talking about?
So just that it got me thinking about when he was saying they're trying to avoid creating scenarios where people will do unnatural things. That's what's behind the storage changes and stuff like that. But I still see this idea that, why wouldn't I just build all of the capabilities anybody could possibly need in a single app and limit who can do what with security roles and pay $10 for? Why would I ever buy the unlimited app? I mean, hardly anybody out there uses more than one app today. 90% of enterprise customers are using a single app already. So I don't understand where the market will be for that $40 unlimited. I don't know who's going to have a need for that. That'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. And frankly, it just may be bad design.
So, no, I don't get it. I do see customers that would want the $40. Why are you saying that they wouldn't?
Because I'll just put everything that anybody needs to do into a single app.
I see. Yeah. But the thing is that, do you want your reception staff working on an app that has everything in it? This is
I'll control visibility with security roles.
True.
I mean, I can lock that down with security roles and
That's valid.
Basically a single app.
It sounds like a loophole.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like an unnatural behavior created by licensing, which is what he said he wanted to try and avoid. Now,
you've put in here on our agenda, ODI is alive. And I felt like saying bullshit. There's nothing been done on ODI since it was announced 2 years ago between SAP, Adobe. That's its open data initiative, right?
Yep. Well, there's nothing been announced. Yeah, I wouldn't say there's nothing been done, but there's certainly nothing been announced about it.
Yeah, I mean, everyone got on stage. They brought the photographers in, all the key people pressed flash and said, how are you? We're working together. Isn't that awesome?
Kind of brings back memories of the picture of Nadella and Benioff on stage, all smiling, right? A while back, where that went.
But we've definitely seen nothing in market, but you had a bit of a chat with Lamana, and I know that on not this podcast with him, but on your previous podcast, he was all kind of jizzed over it back then, very excited about what it meant.
Yeah.
Do you really think it's going to become a reality?
I don't know. It clearly has moved on to there's another fellow there. I can't remember his name that he mentioned, Frank, who's Bruckner,
Frank Underwood,
Frank Bruckner, who's responsible for the ODI. He says that thing is moving along. Charles seemed to feel like when that thing finally gets out, and it's big blocks to move. You're talking
totally. It's a big, yeah. Absolutely.
You're talking about 3 enterprise companies on completely different stacks to try and get them all on some common something is not a small accomplishment, but that once it happens, it's just going to be huge.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Charles, he's a young guy. He may be prone to get excited sometimes about some things, but he doesn't feel like a guy who has false excitement. It may be that it doesn't pan out for some reason or in the end, but I don't think he's sitting there knowing that the thing's, on its last gasp and telling us how awesome it's going to be. He's not that kind of guy. So.
Okay, I had a message come in via Twitter. It says, hey, Mark, could you share some references for improving my Dynamics knowledge along with how to create a development non-trial account? So before we discuss this, let's chuck it to the comments section. Does anybody know how to create a development non-trial account? Is there a URL you can click on? Is there...
I assume he's talking about a free one? Because a free one, you'd have to have a competency or some way to get some UR benefits for free.
Okay, so this is somebody wanting to learn Power Apps, wanting to get better. How do they go about doing it?
Yeah,
there's a kiss. Okay, the comments. There's a community
I thought
edition.
There was a community edition.
Does someone want to drop in the community edition URL? That's a great starting point.
Yeah, because we're way too busy to look it up.
Me?
We're way too busy to look it up. We'll ask the crowd to start working. Yeah, if we're going to do this show every week and we got people on, I think we need to put them to work.
Okay, so Megan's saying this person posted on Twitter. They sent me a private message on this one. Mm-hmm. And the other one is improved Dynamics knowledge. Well, I've just come off a training call with Microsoft prior to this one, and Microsoft Learn is your one-stop shop. Last week we talked about, looked like the EDX content was going away. It seemed that it was maybe a hiccup on the servers or something like that. It's over on Learn. You can actually access it via the Learn portal, the Microsoft Learn portal now.
Wasn't a hiccup. They're moving away from EDX.
No. So Learn it's still hosted on Learn. It's just accessible. Sorry, it's still hosted on EDX. It's just accessible via Learn.
Gotcha. So the doorway is Learn. Don't worry about the EDX doorway. That's back in. The doorway is Learn.
Yeah. So if you want to do the MB200 exam, which is four courses that map to that, that e-learning is all there. Knock yourself out.
Any update from your call with them about your content that you did for the ISVs that vaporized?
No, it wasn't for ISVs. That's the stuff I'm talking about right there.
Okay. Well, you had a whole series you did that was on EDX for ISVs that kind of vaporized, and we're talking about.
No, I haven't done anything for ISVs on EDX.
No,
it was all for the MB200 exam. So the Power Platform, all that training content.
Gotcha. Z Power is asking about MB400.
What's MB400?
I don't know.
No, I don't know what 400 is.
Yeah, I think that the community edition, if I recall, the one drawback to that was it's a single user. I mean, you can only have one user access that. I wouldn't call it a development environment where you're going to have multiple people building stuff. No. It's a learning environment for an individual,
which is what this person's asking for, right? They're obviously solo wanting that. Nick, can you put in the URL to how people can get involved with that D365 user group, that virtual one you hold, which helps prep for the MB200 exam? I'm pretty sure there must be some way for people to connect. Definitely, you shouldn't worry about plugging that type of stuff. The question's asked, and that's a great answer for it. So chuck it into the chat session, how people can get access to that.
And Z-Driver saying that MB400 is actually a Power App certification. But I'm wondering if that's our Power Apps or the Office 365 Power App side.
Yeah, but is it the certification that's not, is the MB400 in market yet, or is that what's coming out in January next year?
Yeah, good question. I did have a comment from somebody about my interview with Charles, that this is all well and good for you folks coming over from the Dynamics side.
Yeah.
But, Power Apps is bigger by far and has been around longer on the Office 365 side, which, to be honest, I don't really know much about. But apparently those guys are really not happy.
You're talking about the Power Apps, which are purely Canvas experiences?
It's the seeded Power Apps capabilities for Office 365 versus the seeded. So I guess up until now, for us, we're looking at this $10 SKU and saying, wow, that's incredible. They're looking at a $10 SKU saying, shit, this was free last month.
Yeah.
For their side, it's apparently creating a lot of havoc. And I apologize that I can't really speak clearly about Power Apps from the Office 365 side, but I definitely am clearly hearing that their opinions of these changes are not as positive as ours.
No, and it's understandable, right? If you've been getting free candy from the candy store all week long, and then he decides that, well, you've had a taste for it now. I know you love it. Yeah. Just like the crack dealer, right? They'll put a bit in your marijuana for a bit. They'll put it in there, and then all of a sudden you got.
I got addicted to crack,
and then you're buying it, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's the method that's being used, but
I think my dealer's at the door right now.
It is kind of 101 marketing in a way. Give it away for free for a couple of years. Everyone gets hooked on it. You're bearing the cost of it, and then they've got to monetize at some point.
Are you accusing Microsoft of a bait and switch strategy?
No, I think they're a business, right? They're not a charity. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is the charity arm,
right?
Right? They're not the charity arm. They are for-profit, #1 company in the world arm.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that. I mean, we see that with these limits and other things where they launch stuff, and I'm sure they sit back and have these big meetings talking with all the team about some product and what they think is going to happen. and all their estimates on what they think the cogs are going to be behind it and what the market uptake and how people use it. Then they launch this stuff. Yep. And then you stand back and you see how close you were. And clearly you find where you weren't close and you go make some adjustments up, or just like any business would, right? And you make an adjustment up or down that, look, that we obviously launched this as something free, but too many people are finding too much value. We shouldn't be giving it away for free. So we're going to stick a cost on it.
Yeah.
Or we launched this thing and nobody's using it, but it's a good product. We must have hit it too high. I mean, that's, you do your best guess. Uh-oh. We are at the end of the show, just like that.
Wow. 5 o'clock. Bang. It's 5 o'clock,
yeah, noon for me,
time. What?
That flew by. That flew by.
Well, very good. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Make sure you submit your questions for next week. We'll be back same time next week. If you're watching this in replay, and we know a great number of people are, feel free to submit your questions. Either connect with either Steve or I via LinkedIn private messenger is a great way to send a message through to us. If you see the URL on the forums.
If you haven't listened to Charles' interview, definitely go to SteveMordue.com. It should be at the top of the page. Listen to that one because that'll save us from having to answer the same questions all the time.
Yeah, I love it.
All right, cool, man.
Steve.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.